sim racing is all about precision. But do you really know where you're losing time? Your braking, throttle control, and racing line. Every detail matters. But without the right data, you're just guessing. This is where Race Data gives you the edge. Instantly analyze your lap data, see exactly where you're losing time, and make real improvements. Know your weaknesses, fix them, get faster. Stop guessing, start improving. Try Race Data today.
Good afternoon and welcome to Montreal for the Radical Sim Racing America's Championship 4th round in 2025. It's been 3 weeks since we went racing last in North America. It was at Road Atlanta for the 3rd round of our America's Championship as this North American leg of the season continues. But this time we've come north of the border now to Canada and to the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, the Wall of Champions and everything in between on this slightly strange street circuit and permanent racetrack mix here tonight. It's myself, Ewan O'Leary, and Ron Mounds in the commentary booth with you tonight. It's good to be alongside you for this one. Ron, Montreal hosts our 4th round of the season, and yeah, looking forward to this. I say, strange street circuit to permanent racetrack mix, but a nice circuit to go racing at for our 4th round of the championship.
As far as I'm concerned, the most iconic racetrack in the entirety of Canada, Gilles-Villeneuve, whether it be Formula One, NASCAR, or the action that we had from the Top Split 2100 GMT broadcast this past Friday, this track can put on some absolutely fantastic racing, and plus it's just super enjoyable to run around here. But in these SR10s, these drivers definitely have a test on their hand to try and finish this 4th race of the season.
They certainly do. Let's see what they're all fighting for in 2025 in both the Americas and European Championship. The top 7 in each class will go to the World Finals. 2nd place with a free entry into next year's season, and with the Drivers' Champion with a 12 months free iRacing subscription as well. The next 7 from 8th to 14th will go into the last chance qualifier in November. The Teams Champions will get a track per driver and free entry into next season, as will the Vice Teams Champions. Also a free entry into the 2026 calendar. Obodo Diaz is currently the Pro Championship standings leader, but just 16 points separate the top 5 drivers, with Aiden Young, Ryan Odo, but Jumper for and also Graham Sanders all involved. Lucas Vieira's not that far away either. David Unger, Diego Zuccarelli and Cameron Martineau round out those who have scored points in the Pro standings. In the AM Championship standings, it's Jose Gonzalez who's leading. Only 13 points, though, ahead of John Benelit, with Colby Book in that third. Chris Reagan and J.R. Gregory round out the top 5, with Adrian Fernandez just a further point behind. Charles Kresic is next ahead of Joel Jacklin, Cedric Ohayon and Luis Miguel Perez to round out the top 10 in the AM standings. Here are the teams. The pros being led by Hydro Genetic Racing by some distance. In AM, it's Flying Line Racing, who are only just in front of Lima Racing by just 10 points in those teams' standings. As I mentioned, we've been to Road America and Road Atlanta in the last 2 rounds. It was 3 weeks ago since we were at Road Atlanta, so let's show you what happened. It was a nice clean start from everybody, I'm glad to say, but as you can see, Obodo Diaz and Aiden Young quickly got into battle, side by side through the final chicane. First of all, Diaz was able to hold on to the lead, at least on that occasion. occasion. It was a short pit stop for John Butterfield and Graham Sanders that made them take an early lead. One of the fascinations with this series is that pit stop phase and how that works across the course of the race. It got them 1 and 2, and they managed to pull away from Aidan Young, excuse me, who was running in third for most of that second stint. Then into the final stop, Young still managed to get in front of the two teammates as he pushed all the way in, couldn't take in the risk there, absolutely to the maximum. 10 seconds in the box, that's all he needed, and it was comfortable-ish in the end for Aidan Young to get out in the lead, despite the good teamwork there from Sanders and Butterfield. Further back in the AM class, there was some great fighting. This is Colby Buck, J.R. Gregory and Joel Jacklin all fighting away. Joel Jacklin making up places as a result of the stumble for J.R. Gregory out of that chicane onto the final run up. Then a couple of laps later, Jacklin down the inside of Colby Buck up to 11th place, although not for very long. Buck straight back through again in 11th. Lots of great battling further down the lower end of the AM standings, but out front, Jose Gonzalez would be controlling the race. Diaz's battles wouldn't end either. Ryan Odo would be down his inside on the way into the final corner as well. Diaz finding himself off into the grass into the final minute of the race, and Ryan Odo would get himself down to the inside and indeed through into 4th position. But Jose Gonzalez would take the AM class for the Vima Racing team, and out front it would be Aidan Young who would take the win by just over 3 seconds, just over 4.5, excuse me, over Graham Sanders, John Butterfield at the end there. The two teammates, his first victory indeed, Aidan Young, 3 weeks ago. A good lively race as you'd expect from Road Atlanta, and a very different circuit to come here for us tonight, Ron, but my goodness, this is a close championship fight at the moment at the top of the pro standings, especially 16 points separating the top 5 is quite remarkable.
And you look through, we've had Ryan Odo, Ubaldo Diaz, and Aidan Young all grab victories in the first 3 rounds of this championship here in 2025. It's really hard to get momentum rolling when it comes to a series like this. I was just looking through the schedule. We've had 3 races up to this point, heading into the 4th now. This season started many, many months ago, so with multi-week breaks between some of the races, granted, it makes it easier to dust yourself off if you have a not-so-ideal race meeting in one round, but if you're doing well, it's hard to carry that momentum into the next race of the championship, and we're really seeing that in that Pro Class Championship battle. All 3 of those drivers have been struck by a falling anvil at some point, so let's see if we're going to have one of them finally break through and give us our first multi-time winner in the Pro category this season here in the 2025 Radical Americas Championship, or if we're going to keep that streak going of different race winners.
Yeah, we've seen so far the week breaks. I mean, at least 3 weeks off, indeed, in between each round. I think we've got another 3 before we get to Interlagos for the 5th round of our championship, and indeed we'll be at halfway already. But as you say, this season stretches over right from the start of March. We started on the 9th of March in the Americas Championship, just 1 week after the European Championship began, and we're running all the way to the World Finals, which is on the 23rd of November. Many months away, about 6 months away still, the World Finals. So we've got a very, very long season up ahead of us. Jarek Dukovic is going to be next over the line here in this qualifying session, just over 5 minutes left within it. And you can very much see the class split. Zuccarelli to Gonzalez is nearly a 7/10 of a second margin. But this is Aidan Young, the winner from last round, looking to repeat it and maybe become our first repeat winner of the day. It looks like all the winners so far are looking to become repeat winners because they're all up towards the front right now. And Aidan Young just goes fastest by 1/10.5.
And right between those drivers who have grabbed the wins up to this point in the Pro category this season, you have the reigning Pro champion here in the Radical Americas Series of Lucas Vieira. Ubaldo Diaz, though, jumping back in front of Aidan Young this solo session. Not going to have the draft to worry about. These drivers have the track to their lonesome, and they have 4 laps to try and get the job done. But with not a lot of time left to go in the session, these drivers are starting to exhaust the amount of laps they have left. It is crunch time for these competitors, and in these final 2 laps, that's probably going to see when we see the cookers of lap times.
Good afternoon to everyone watching along at home, or good evening, rather, more accurately. Somebody asking whether this championship is a fixed series, fixed series race like the official Radical Series, or whether we have open setups. We've got fixed setups with the one caveat that fuel is limited in these cars to begin with, so it creates the need for 2 pit stops for all of these drivers, and they they have to split that across the race in various different ways. They've got the opportunity anyway to split that across various different ways over the course of the race, and so it does create a lot of interest actually when you go through one of these races. It is always super changeable in terms of when the pit stops come and indeed how long they take, like what Sanders and Butterford did 3 weeks ago, getting out front and working together as teammates to try and beat Aidan Young. On that occasion it didn't work, but it's a great thing about this series that there is that option. As Ryan Odo scrapes the wall of champions there, he'll be hoping that that's a good omen. I'm afraid the lap though isn't. He's going to improve, but he won't gain any places with that because he made contact with the wall. He stays 5th for now.
Ryan Odo looking to get some momentum here at Montreal. Won the opening race of the season at the Nordschleife, making up for what happened at the end of the 2024 season when he lost out in a squeaker of a championship fight between himself and his now teammate of Lucas Vieira. Those two set to join each other on the third row as it stands at the present moment. Here's a driver, though, that we may need to keep tabs on in this race coming up. Graham Sanders in the 100 car. He hasn't been able to grab a win up to this point, but he has shown a heck of a lot of pace, and here at Montreal, it may be his for the taking. Let's see how he does in this qualifying lap. Crosses the line now. Will it be pole? Will it be an improvement on his already set lap time? It is an improvement, but not an improvement in position. Now only 0.2 of a second between himself and Ubaldo Diaz, still on that provisional pole.
Yeah, he may have only just cemented further that inside run in towards turn 1 on row 2. Ryan Odo next in line here in the sector times, 25.4 from him first time round. That's not quite where he needs to be. The middle sector not quite there either at the moment, I'm afraid. That needed to be a 27 really, and Ryan Odo surely has got to set himself up for one last lap coming up next here, rather than really worrying about this one too much. Focus on getting the exit right out of this bit, and there you go, a little bit less close to the wall than what he was last time round, where he was too close for comfort indeed, and he got into the barrier. Over the line, it's a 31.3. That's the end of his session, in fact. Ryan Odo is going to be at best in 5th place.
And as we see that shootout for the pole continue to develop, I want to touch on the AM category where Jared Dunkovic is currently your top qualified AM, set to start this race in P8 as it stands at the present moment. Jose Gonzalez has already grabbed 2 wins up to this point, those coming back-to-back in the races at Road America and Road Atlanta, hitting the ground running in this race at Montreal, but he is not your current provisional AM pole sitter. So let's see if Jared Dunkovic, a driver who only entered this series last time out at Road Atlanta, may be able to give a challenge to the number 21 of Gonzalez. He showed some pace last time out, wasn't able to seal the deal, but I think Jose Gonzalez may be shaking in his boots a little bit compared to some previous rounds.
Yeah, he's the current leader, but he's under pressure here for the AM pole, and indeed will be in the AM race as well, as we ride with John Butterford over the line. This is going to be another improvement slightly, but not in position. Same as Graham Sanders. Looks like it's going to be a geodesic lockout. And here's GR Gregory, RaceSpotTV zone, racing away in 16th position just for the moment. About a second off of pole, just under a second off of pole, in 16th place overall, which is 8th place in the AM category. Now makes his way up towards the end of the straight, and it's one of the last drivers actually still out there on the circuit on a decent representative lap time here. Mentioned that the pros need to be in the 27s, mid-28 from the middle sector's all fine, but he's just practicing pit entry, which is going to have its own pitfalls this afternoon.
I like the pun there. I'm not sure whether that was intentional or otherwise, but well done there, Ewan. But that is going to be a huge factor in this race coming up. If you nail that pit entry, you're going to be smelling like a bed of roses. If you get it wrong, you're going to be smelling like a bucket of horse manure. Pick up a penalty, and you're going to be feeling real bad for this race we have coming up.
Not intentional, and I'm ashamed of myself. Let's have a look at the starting grid for this race. It starts with Alberto Diaz for the Vima Racing team on the pole. 130.3 from him with Aidan Young alongside. It's a geodesic row 2 with Graham Sanders and John Butterford ahead of the teammates from ERC, Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira sharing row 3. Diego Zuccarelli is next ahead of the AM pole, to Jared Dunkovic. with Jose Gonzalez and Adrian Fernandez rounding out the top 10. David Unger and John Bernalid are on row 6, ahead of Joel Jacklin and Charles Kresic. Colby Book and J.R. Gregory will continue their battle from Road Atlanta in row 8 by the looks of it. Robert Neville and Alfredo Terza Souza will be on row 9, with Gregory Castillo and Luis Miguel Perez on the back of the grid. Didn't get a representative time in. He was 6 seconds off of the pole. Well, the conditions are very nice out there on the circuit, I've got to say. 23 degrees track temperature, and the sun is out as well. 27 kilometers an hour. Wind is quite fast, about 15 miles an hour, by the way, just in the morning here on the 17th of May. Nice conditions for the hour-long race we're about to get.
It may be 23 degrees C, a lot cooler than it was in the Friday 2100 GMT broadcasted races for the official series, but the number I've got in my head is 25. That's the incident point limit before these drivers pick up a DQ, or on a track like this, we may need to think about that in this race coming up.
Absolutely. Especially if it's a bit of a race with a bit of rough and tumble, as we say in England. It could well be a bit physical on the streets of Montreal. As I mentioned, such a strange mix of street and permanent parts, this circuit, but a great and iconic circuit. Hosted Formula One and lots of other things across the world as well. And now the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship in 2025. 1 hour of racing set to get underway, and the green flag now waves. Everybody gets away pretty well, and already looking inside and outside on the way in towards the first chicane for the first time. It's going to be Diaz who leads in towards turn 1, and he gets away well. Another clean start, I'm glad to say, for the second round in a row here from the Americas Championship after the chaos of the opening of the European Championship from Oulton Park 7 days ago. The Americas Championship showing them how it's done with a clean run through Sector 1 for the first time.
But as they head off through the mid-sector of this lap, this may be when we start to see some drivers break their elbows out down into the braking zone for turns number 6 and 7. This second chicane of this track, littered with chicanes and all really, really challenging. This old scan of the track as well. It's a lot smoother, the asphalt is in real life nowadays, and the runoff area is a lot more forgiving. Here, though, this is the biggest change through turns number 8 and 9. This chicane, always tough in my book to try and get it right, especially with that runoff or lack thereof. Coming out of turn number 9, you've got track, curb, wall, nothing else in these drivers' back pockets. So super tough to try and nail down some of the corners around this racetrack, and if you make a mistake, you're going to be in for a world of hurt. But these drivers looking to hit their marks as best as they can from the drop of the green flag.
And Nathan Young has got a very good exit off of the hairpin there, and so he's going to have a chance at Alberto Diaz already here. Side by side in towards the final corner, and this is side by side into the final chicane that never quite works out. And they just about scrape through without contact. Young again with a decent exit here, and the teammates now side by side. Not sure whether Vieira might have snagged the wall there, but Young certainly didn't. He's going for the lead in towards turn number 1. Outside line will give him the inside at turn 2. Diaz tries to shut him out, but Young dives deep, and he tries to get the lead there on the inside of that hairpin. Here comes John Butterford just in behind as well, watching on, waiting to see who prevails, and it's going to be Aidan Young, the winner from last round at Road Atlanta, now leads at Montreal on lap 2.
Aidan Young, a newcomer to this series in the Radical Americas Championship. He has come to play, and he's come to fight hard, as there's an incident heading through the opening series of corners. I believe that may have been Alfredo Souza and Joel Jacklin who came to blows heading off through turns number 1 and 2. Not sure what may have gone on there, but I think Joel Jacklin was missing the entire rear end of his race car, so some huge contact as Colby Buck has actually made an early run to the pits. Who was that hitting the wall? That may have been Diaz.
Yeah, Diaz, we've got some replays to look at, though. This is Colby Buck ending up in the wall down here at the Wall of Champions in the background. Didn't spot that live, but thanks very much for picking that one up. Here comes Odo. Oh, my word. Odo Diaz's mistake has cost him dearly here. I thought it would only cost him a place or 2. It's cost him 3, and now Ryan Odo's through. He's going to make it 3 wide maybe here as he tries to get past Graham Sanders. And now where does Diaz go? He gets back into the slipstream of 1, maybe the other. He's going to the pass. Oh, my goodness. He hits Graham Sanders. He hits him on the straight, and Alberto Diaz now down to 5th position.
Diaz, that's not even playing with fire. That is playing with a nuclear bomb heading down that back straightaway off into the final chicane. He's still got fantastic view of the side-by-side flip between Odo and Sanders down into turn number 1. That's Odo trying to hold his own on the inside, but here comes Sanders back at him into turn number 2. Let's see if Odo will be able to withstand this challenge. He wants to come into this race and keep some momentum rolling after winning race number 1. He's going to get shuffled out of the podium down into 4th. But Ubaldo Diaz, after that mistake, heading through turns number 8 and 9, just one lap ago, less than that, in fact, he's still looking to maybe get his way back up to the front. So we take a look at a moment involving Alfredo Souza. It was a wild off-track moment heading through the opening series of corners. Doesn't look like he got anyone else caught up in his drama. You could see the other replay that we looked at before with a big crash heading through the final chicane, but Souza taking the rally special stage line, shall we say, heading off through 1 and 2.
That was all sorts of wrong in towards turn 1 and 2 there. Got that absolutely all wrong. And he's still running at least, though, down towards the back. And Joe Jacqueline did move down the field as well. This is not a good start for Ubaldo Diaz. He's really sort of out of position and out of the rhythm right now. And I'm afraid this is far and away from his performance that we saw measured and considered at Road America, where he won earlier this season. He's all over the place early on here at Montreal, as Ryan Odo is starting to grow into this race. Quite the opposite, actually, to what Ubaldo Diaz is experiencing. Ryan Odo is only getting quicker. This is Adrian Fernandez making contact, and that's a concertina effect into the hairpin for him.
And it brought up a fantastic point talking about the contrast between Ubaldo Diaz and Ryan Odo, as that's a spin coming out the final corner and a huge contact. That, I believe, may have been Charles Krasik catching up with Adrian Fernandez. There you can see Fernandez, he's had to tow back to the pits. Huge amount of damage on that number 127 car, and that was Krasik, one of the Flying Line racing cars, getting caught up in that drama coming out of the chicane. Let's take a look at here, and that was a big one.
Dear, oh dear. He just, he rejoins right into Fernandez. Krasic might find himself in trouble for that. This bit's, an innocent spin, really. Not much anybody can do about that, but you can't rejoin when somebody's coming up on you like that. And then down the inside of Sanders, they both go off. Now Sanders weaves around. Where's Diaz going to go? Left or right? He's going to go to the right-hand side. Odo has to lose some time. Sanders might well lose the position here. Diaz might be back on the podium almost as quickly as he's lost it, and he is down the inside of the hairpin.
And my, oh my, that section heading off through 8 and 9, I had talked about right towards the start of this broadcast and the start of this race, talking about the challenges heading off through that section of the racetrack. No real runoff area. You've got a bit of grass on the outside of turn number 8, but that grass littered with bits of access road and everything. It is a super bumpy ride if you have a moment heading off through there, so real easy to have something go desperately wrong for you. Graham Sanders losing out on some time, still heading down the start-finish straight away, as this is a fight for the lead-in am. You can see Jared Dunkovich with Jose Gonzalez on the outside of him down into turn number 1. Gonzalez in the 21 car looking to get a move done now, holding on to the inside line off through turn number 2, and that's Gonzalez, your 2-time race winner, jumping into the am lead.
And that is a very good pass, but Dunkovich is going to come straight back again. Oh, turn 3, that was super close. They just about got away with it, and he might have scraped the wall, Dunkovich, but it wasn't too hard. And they'll get away with that. Jose Gonzalez now leads the race. What a great battle between these two. Gerald Gregory's really benefited from this. He's in the background closing in from 3rd place. You can see him in the shining chrome, which at least one half of his car is, and the black the other side. Look at that. Gerald Gregory up 6 places, the biggest mover forward so far today.
I gotta say, a RaceSpotTV colleague is doing us well. He's an expert with these SR10s and showing off his muscles behind the wheel of the race car right now, as Graham Sanders locks steady in a very close battle with the two Team ERC teammates of Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira. Sanders has not had a fantastic start to this race, down 2 spots from where he started, but that 100 car has some pace. As long as he can keep it clean, he may be a driver that we have to talk about in this race. And again, we've seen so much drama in this race already. Think of how much racing we've had up to this point, and then realize that we still have about 52.5 minutes of racing action left to go, and those 2 pit stops to worry about along with it. Still plenty of time left for these competitors to make up some time and make their moves and jump into whatever spot they want to.
Here comes Dunkovich again, and can't quite repeat the move that Gonzalez did to him, although he did get in his head a little bit there. Gonzalez broke a little bit too late, but he'll pull it back in time for the racing line at turn number 2 without problems in the end. Now through into the end of the first sector. That's turn 3, then 4. And that wall up on the outside there, almost as easy to grab as the Wall of Champions is on the outside of the final corner. Now down into turn 6. not particularly good chance at overtaking. To be honest, that's a better line through 7 though, and if you can do that for Dunkovic, you can have a chance towards turn 8, which is a bit unconventional as well, but you can make it work, and he's going to, is Dunkovic. Odo and Sanders found each other off the road when they did this last, but these two a lot better behaved, and Dunkovic gets the lead back.
Yeah, this is going to be a titanic fight between these two competitors. Dunkovic, not sure if he's going to get involved in the championship battle considering his late entrance into this season, but nonetheless, he has come to fight and is being a big thorn in the side to Jose Gonzalez. He looked for a move down into the hairpin, but not close enough. And if these two drivers start to battle hard, you gotta look in the back and find Jared Gregory and Jean Benelid maybe going to get involved in this battle as well. They're side by side down the back stretch, down into the final chicane. That's Gonzalez on the outside. Dunkovic, he's not going to lift, he's not going to yield. He hits that curb and gets that move done to remain in the race lead, as there's also a fight flaring up with Ubaldo Diaz and John Bodefer.
Yeah, there is for second place, but this is all allowing Aiden Young to get even further out front right now. The early battles have really hurt some of these top contenders, apart from the leader, who has stayed a long way in front. This might be why John Bodefer just through the final chicane here, just in front of Diaz at the time, and then had to pull over. Might have just jumped the curve a bit too harshly there, and he's got a slow down penalty by the looks of that.
And that's one more thing to raise. I mentioned right before we grabbed the green flag in this race, talking about the incident points, which I still think are going to be a huge factor in this race. I mean, narrow track, it is technically speaking a street circuit, although it certainly doesn't feel like that. It is a street circuit, very tight boundaries around this track. Those incident points, they're going to be accumulated rather quick. Those drivers are going to be collecting incident points like Pokemon cards in this race that we have coming up. But along with that, you've also got those slowdowns, which heading your way through the final chicane, if you're, let's say we have a battle with Aiden Young and Ubaldo Diaz, don't want to bring up hypotheticals into this, but if you have a battle heading your way into the chicane and you pick up a slowdown, you're going to be feeling bad. That's Sanders with a mighty run on Odo down that back straightaway, going to clear him before they even think about getting into the brakes into the final chicane.
Well, Odo's going to come back again in towards turn 1, that's for sure. He got a much better run out of that final chicane, and no, not quite close enough. I really thought he was going to fire down the inside there, but maybe they're starting to realise with just over 10 minutes gone that actually getting into single file and starting to think about this race a little bit more strategically is probably a better idea at this stage than battling away. It's not the entertaining thing to do as far as we're concerned, but after all, these guys are trying to win a race, and I think the way to do that is probably not by battling, especially with Aiden Young out front. You're never going to catch him going side by side with somebody else.
And doubly so considering the fact that we've got those 2 pit stops coming up. I mean, you've seen this a lot throughout this season of both the Americas and the European Championship. We've both seen it when it comes to the Americas. These pit stops can make a massive difference in how things shake out at the end of these races. It may not seem like too terribly much, but a small mistake, whether it be carrying too much speed and picking up a penalty, carrying not enough speed and just losing time through pit lane, maybe putting in too much fuel, maybe putting in not enough fuel, and just this general strategy content. There is so much that hangs in the balance when these drivers make that run through pit lane. So as much as it may not be super exciting with all these drivers beating and banging and roughing each other up, once we get those pit stops in play for this race, we're gonna have to break out the calculators and think about how strategy can help these drivers soar.
Yeah, we'll see. It feels like we've entered a different phase of the race now, really, and with 12 minutes gone, starting to think about this a little bit more. There have already been pit stops down the field, and we've seen some pretty long ones, unfortunately. Adrian Fernandez was in there for over a minute down at the back end. Luis Miguel Perez is currently in there for a very long time. He's just making his way back out onto the circuit now as well. Joe Jacklin was in for nearly 50 seconds. Josh Kresitz, I think, must have had to tow. He's back a long way. Telling me that Colby Book has been in twice already. Gregory Castillo is probably the only driver who's made a pit stop, and it's been intentional at this stage in the race. Very difficult for these top contenders to come in early on, otherwise they end up in traffic themselves. Now, these two have been side by side here at this stage before, and they went off the circuit together earlier, Odo and Sanders. This time still single file, but Odo does look quicker than Sanders here.
Yeah, and I think Ryan Odo, after winning the opening race at the Nordschleife, he's got a bit of a sour taste in his mouth with how things have gone for him as of recent in this series. Had some good pace, had the opportunity to win at Road America, but didn't really materialize for him. Last time out at Road Atlanta, it was another race that he had the pace to contend well in, just wasn't able to seal the deal. He wants to go out and impress. In a series as short as this, you want to try and get some moves done. He's trying to go for one on Graham Sanders down into the chicane. They're still side by side, clicking their way off through the first curb. That is some real risky stuff from these two drivers so early on.
That was very risky. Here comes Ryan Odo down the inside again, though, in towards the inside of Graham Sanders. Just about make it through together. Can he stay on the outside through this part to give himself a chance at the next? Not really. Sanders fends him off again, and look at the gap balloon. The gap was 5 seconds. It's nearly 8 now between Sanders and Odo and the front of the race. Aiden Young, Ubaldo Diaz and John Butterford are being designated now as the three only contenders here the more this battle goes on.
As we continue to see this race develop, we got some drivers already coming into the pits with Gonzalez, Unger, Gregory, and Neville. We are getting to that point where we are going to see these drivers make that run through pit lane. More on that in a couple of moments. Odo back down the inside, down into turn number 8 through 9 right now. That's Odo back up to 4th. Graham Sanders still within striking distance. With these drivers battling, it's going to allow those podium runners to jump out into a bit of a gap as we see J.R. Gregory leaving the pits right now. He's going to be right in front of Robert Neville, who's going to be a little bit farther in front of the Aussie of David Unger in the 154 car. Always nice to have tabs on David Unger, the one Aussie in this series. I remember he ran last season. I was always like, man, run it at, because I think it's probably a bad breakfast time for him. So credit where credit is due, the fact he's assigned to run these races, as we got all of them coming into the pits at the front.
Yeah, we certainly do. It's just coming up to 11 o'clock in Melbourne, by the way, in the morning. So there you go. Monday morning racing for those in Australia. Here comes Aiden Young, though, leading them all onto pit lane. You generally see this from the pros. They stay out as long as possible because pitting early means AM traffic, and they do not want that at all. You see it with the AM leaders as well, and we'll get back to those in a moment. But how long are these pit stops going to be? Aiden Young led by about a second and a half beforehand, and his pit stop is quite long here, very long, in fact. If Sanders is going to do something similar to what he did last time, he's going to be out here quickly. Butterford he's going to get out ahead of Young. Diaz was a bit shorter than Young that time as well. The three leaders are together now. Goodness me, what a battle we could have on our hands here with differing pit stop times in the first pit stops of this race.
And with these alternate strategies, we're probably going to see some rather different ones come time for the second pit cycle. With the yin comes the yang, and we see that a lot. We've seen these drivers try and throw stuff at the wall, see what sticks, and with the varied tracks that we've gone to up to this point in the season, the Nordschleife, Road America, and Road Atlanta, I think the only thing that those tracks have in common is that they're paved with asphalt. That's about it. So we're going to see these drivers throw a lot of stuff at the wall, figure out what strategy works for them, figure out what strategy works for the track. They're going to throw the kitchen sink at it week in and week out. I'm sure these drivers have a lot of calculations they've done to figure out what's going to work best for them, and they're now in the opportunity. There's no more practicing. They've had to put these strategies into effect. Let's see whose is going to work out best and whose is going to work out worst.
It's super interesting. I really enjoy the strategy elements of these races. It's really very well done by the organisers to get us 2 stops in a race, and also with such different possibilities as well. I mean, let me run you through the shortest and the longest so far we've seen today. J.L. Gregory was sat there for 25 seconds. He must have packed that car absolutely full of fuel. Gregory Castillo, as I mentioned earlier, made a really early stop. He was only in for 13 seconds, for example, and he can go a lot shorter than that. So there's real difference, 12 seconds of a difference from top to bottom, even in that pit stop window there. We've seen a lot shorter than that as well here, so it's especially interesting to see first time round. Ubaldo Diaz leads though. He spent 17.9 seconds in the box. John Butterford spent 15.6. Aiden Young spent 20.3, and he knows these passes are important. Diaz is going to get away if he doesn't get past John Butterford. He's going to be on the outside, ready for turn 7 here, and this could cost them both time as the gap to the leader grows to 2 seconds.
And if they stall out on this too much, it's going to end in tears. But that's Aiden Young jumping his way into the race lead with a commanding move down into turn number 8 as they both scrape the wall on exit as well. It has to be the most challenging corner around this racetrack. We'll hopefully have the chance to have a chat with some of these drivers after this race is said and done. I want to ask them about that section if I have the opportunity, because we've seen so many moments heading off through there, those drivers having to shave off the sides of their race cars. I mean, hey, weight reduction in the world of racing, you see it a lot, but that's probably a bit of an alternate method that I would not recommend myself. But Aiden Young and John Bodefer both pushing the limits of their race cars, pushing the limits of this racetrack, and now Aiden Young has a real test on his hand. Getting the pass done on Bodefer in the number 67 was one thing, but he now has a 1.8 second gap to close up to make his way to the back of Ubaldo Diaz and give us a bit of deja vu from that battle we saw between those two in the early stages.
I have a feeling this could be quite cordial now that Young is actually passed. So there may well be just a real bit of time trialing really between these front three at the front of the race. Graham Sanders not that far away either. Ryan Odo is now 11 seconds off the leader. He took 20 seconds on the pit lane though, the same as Aiden Young. Lucas Vieira did as well. Diego Zuccarelli did. So did Jarek Junkovic actually, and he leads despite taking a 2 second longer pit stop in the out class compared to Jose Gonzalez. And so that's a very interesting thing there, as there's a lap car who's gotten in between the leaders now. Only spent a couple of corners ahead of Young, but now is still ahead on the way down in towards the hairpin. And Young is going to have to make the dive, and that lap car will just go very wide. I think that's Joel Jacqueline in 19th position, just staying out the way of these two leaders here.
And as we have a temporary, keyword being temporary, truce at the front of the field between these two competitors, I wonder if we can maybe take a look at the drivers in P12 and P13. Mainly your P12 runner of John Benlid, a veteran of last season, and of course running here in 2025. Currently found stuff in P12 at the moment, was locked in a very close battle with himself and David Unger. But between the last round of this championship at Road Atlanta and this one here at Montreal, some pretty good news came out from John Benlid. The fact he has picked up a real-life racing seat and a real-life Radical in the real-life Radical Canada Cup with Lima Racing, while the team's participating in this iRacing championship. So we'd like to send our good luck wishes to John Benlid as he tackles some of those real-life racing adventures this upcoming year. Always nice to see that sim to real-world crossover, and here in the Radicals, we certainly get that. Radical Motorsports always throwing their support behind the Radical sim racing side of things, and always good to see that crossover with drivers from the sim racing world making their appearance in real life as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Congratulations to him for that. It's a great thing about the modern age of sim racing. There is a lot more crossover than there used to be, and there are those chances around for drivers to get involved in the real world now, which is absolutely fantastic. So yeah, good luck to him in the real world. Currently runs in the top 5 of this race right now. Further back in the AM class, Adrian Fernandez just in behind Colby Book, and this very much is among drivers who have had problems so far today. They both had long stops, especially in the case of Fernandez, over a minute down on pit lane for him, and he's now trying to get past Colby Book. So yeah, this is two very, very delayed AM drivers just looking to pick up what they can from this race.
Yeah, and trying to figure out how exactly they go about the rest of this race. It feels like there's been so much action up to this point. I've had that first cycle through pit lane. I've seen a lot of drama, drivers being and banging and roughing each other up at a steady click of 150 miles an hour. But now we've gotten to the point where these drivers, you've entered that mid stage of the race where it's like, okay, we've had the drama of the opening parts. We've had that smoke and chaos go up in the air. Now that the smoke is starting to settle and we can take a look at the bigger picture, let's take it easy for now. Let's maybe think about how to set yourself up as best as possible for the final 15 minutes instead of just going at each other with just hammers and axes and just about anything you could do, medieval flails, whatever weapon you could get your hands on. It's probably the time to put that down and think about how to set yourself up well for the end of this race.
That final stint of the race, by the way, is still more than 7 laps away, so there's plenty of time to do that. We're not even halfway through just yet, and this is now very much the waiting middle part of the race. I think Young and Butterfield are very much just working together here, and they're both benefiting, I think, from this partnership they're just creating at the moment. Hayden Young seems to be a little bit quicker, and he's at least dragging them closer to Obodo Diaz. If he's not getting them any closer, he's at least keeping them close and keeping them in with a chance. And don't forget, John Butterfield took on less fuel in that previous stop, and so the more time he spends behind Hayden Young, the more possibility he's got for fuel saving, and the better chance he can stay with those two up in front to battle away for the race win later on in this race.
And as we get to the halfway mark in just 6 minutes time, I wonder what's going through the head of Obodo Diaz in the race lead. You're seeing that gap grow a little bit between yourself and Hayden Young. Are you getting a bit more confident? Or are you still a little bit nervous? He will have to take a bit more time through the pits this upcoming time if he does come into the pits at the same time of his rivals. Who is the most confident and who is probably the least confident at this race? That's a real question that I've got going in my head. These two, though, in the AM category, they're still just as close as ever. Jared Dunkovich and Jose Gonzalez. Gonzalez looking to get 3 wins in a row in the first 4 races of this season, and in a championship that's only 10 races long, that would be a very good result for him. But Jared Dunkovich looking for his first, and I have a feeling that number 9 car may be able to get it done here at Montreal. He's got the pace.
Yeah, I reckon he's in a good situation right now as well. But this is, I think, a more interesting battle to have a look at here in the AM class than those battling for second, because I think it's beneficial for Young and Butterfield to stay as they are. But for these two, I think Gonzalez has definitely got a bit of a benefit maybe to getting past and on up the road. It depends whether he wants to take on that strategy, because he was in the pit lane for 2 seconds shorter, taking on fuel for 2 seconds less. Does he want to do that, or does he want to extend? Oh, well, never mind. It's all gone now. Jose Gonzalez got no chance of winning the race like that, I'm afraid, and he spins out of the final corner. He won't actually lose any places, such as the huge gap back to third and J.L. Gregory, but Gonzalez there has spun, and for the first time this season, he's in danger of not finishing on the top step of the podium.
And Jose Gonzalez, after not getting it done in the first race, I think he may not be able to get it done here in the 4th at Montreal. Let's take a look at this moment as he head out the chicane. Both of them had a terrible run heading off through that section. I think Gonzalez may have seen that small little snap from Dunkovich. I want to listen closely here. Yeah, I think what he saw there was he saw the 9 car of Dunkovich get a little bit sideways on corner exit, and ever the opportunist, he wanted to try and gun it so he could get a good run on him heading down into turn number 2, but in the process of it, lit up those rear tires, and around he goes. That's a big mistake for Gonzalez. Thankfully for him, he has those 2 race wins already, but in that ever-competitive AM category, you can't afford to have mistakes like that week after week. He's probably happy to have those 2 wins at this point, because despite the fact that he was practicing his donuts there, he also lost out on any real hope of getting into the lead anytime soon.
Yeah, I think Dunkovich is big favourite now at the front of the AM class, to be honest, based on that spin for Gonzalez and just the speed those two have over the rest of the AM field as well. They are a long, long way ahead of the rest of those competitors. And as we now go back on board with John Butterfield, again, they're losing time to Obodo Diaz. The gap now over 2.5 seconds. And don't forget, Young was in the pit lane for 2.4 seconds more than Diaz in the first stops. And so you do the maths. If it's the opposite way round next time round, Young would have been out in front beforehand, but now that's just switched over. As it goes up to 2.5, 2.6, 2.7, 2.8 even. It starts to swing the way of Obodo Diaz here in this race, although, as I say, there's still a very long way to go until these guys will have to come into the pit lane. So we'll worry about that a bit later. But for now, it's just Diaz who's seeing the momentum come to him.
Yeah, and that's one thing when it comes to these races. You can get a good result by not even putting in a huge amount of effort. If all the drivers around you try and push their cars to the limit of control, try and push themselves to the limit, and they overstep the mark a little bit, as I thought we were nearly going to see that with Bodefer heading his way through the final chicane, really with a lot of understeer through the first part of that section, as that's a spin heading down to turn number 1. That, I believe, is Gregory Castillo in the number 12 car. I could just barely see that as we saw those racers exit the final turn. Yeah, there you can see a spin for the 12. Very easy section of the racetrack to spin. I talked about this a lot in the Friday 2100 GMT broadcast, which you can catch every single Friday here on RaceSpotTV. But this track isn't one that's gotten a lot of use in the Radical SR10 world. I think the last time it was part of an official series season schedule was back when the series was called the Radical Racing Challenge, all the way back in season 1 of 2023. It has been quite some time for a lot of these racers, and for some of them, this may be some of their first laps that they're doing with this combination, so not the known quantities that we've had in the opening rounds.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking as well, now you brought it up, it is a pretty unused combination, to be fair. And we are maybe seeing the results of that as well, as Kobe Buck and Gregory Castillo go side by side now, right in front of the guys battling for second place. Oh, and Young doesn't know where to go. He's going to go through the middle, is he, maybe? This is terrible news for these two, and now finally they'll get through on the 2 lap drivers. It's a very short circuit, and so already we could have 7 of our 20 off the lead lap in the next few moments. And this is Castillo now on the straight, who needs to just back out of it by the end, and he does. But Young and Butterfield there would have had their hearts in their mouths. They saw a battling pair just up in front of them. They're going to continue just in their rearview mirrors right now. That could have cost them a lot more time than it ended up doing.
Oh, that could have ended in absolute tears. When it comes to battling around this racetrack, any small little blip could end in disaster. So these drivers are running on a ragged edge of control, as that's Graham Sanders trundling his way down pit lane, and he is going to try and hit his marks on this stop. While the first drivers to come down pit lane, I'm looking through, he does not have a penalty, so this is a on-schedule stop from him. You can see him in the pit stall right now. The field still burning their way down that start finish straight away. That was Jared Dunkovic in that very striking purple number 9 machine, heading his way down into turn at number 1. Out and away goes the 100 of Graham Sanders, who I may have pulled off a commentator's jinx on. I thought he was going to have a real good shot to do well, but things not really working out the way he probably had in mind.
Yeah, it's probably something he's noticed there, Sanders. He's seen Dunkovic and Gonzalez all of a sudden open up a big gap in the middle there, and so he can suddenly take on an early pit stop and get himself back out onto the circuit in 8th position in a lot of clean air, as opposed to all the lap traffic that the leaders are going to be taking on. But I just think that's going to be counterbalanced here by the fact that Sanders is going to be heavier on fuel than all of the guys up in front of him there, and never mind them, he might even be looking over his shoulder here at the likes of Odo and Vieira finishing up in front of him, because they're running nose to tail now. And again, Sanders is going to be heavier than those guys for quite some laps here if they run their fuel tanks dry.
Yeah, I gotta say, I've seen it in the past. I think I saw it a decent amount in the 2024 Radical Americas Championship. Even though the format was a little bit different with 45-minute long races, drivers running out of gas and just completely throwing away their chances of doing well. As someone who's run out of gas on the road in real life in a car where I lost power steering and power braking immediately as a result, I can let you know that running out of gas is not a very good experience. These drivers gotta look to try to avoid that at all costs. And around here, it is a somewhat short lap compared to some of the other tracks that we have been at thus far this season. 1.5-minute long lap times, 2.7 miles long. So if you do decide to run it low, just make sure you have a bit in your reserves, because the advantage is a very low percentage move to try and do something like that. The reward isn't nearly as great as the pain that you get from running out of fuel and having to tow back to pit lane.
On the bottom of your screen there, John Bedlid is trying to get past Robert Neville here. That's for 11th position overall. J.R. Gregory's not that much further up in front there in that final podium place in the AM order, AM standings, as things are running. Bedlid just peeking down the inside of Robert Neville, now out of turn 7. Squeezing on the power at that curved right-hander, which goes on curved for a lot longer than that you sometimes remember. Now on the way towards turn 8, that's quite late on the brakes from Neville in front, but he's absolutely nailed that through that chicane, which is a lot more challenging than it is in real life these days, the iRacing version, because there is no runoff in this version, which I think this circuit is probably better for. Lucas Vieira just got past Ryan Odo as well, by the way, for 4th position. Odo, to me, seems to be going backwards.
Yeah, it's not looking good for him at the present moment. But to circle back on a point you raised a couple of moments ago, I do want to raise this as we are past the halfway mark. This track is one that can be super challenging for these drivers. Obviously, with the amount of turns around here, lack of runoff area, that's one thing. There is no real point to rest running around here. So the mind side of things, super vital around here as well. You've got a bit of the start-finish straightaway and a bit of the backstretch. Outside of that, you are always turning, always having to worry about the way your race car is handling. With the draft in these SR10s, those long flat-out blasts are usually not a point of rest either, considering you'll see games of leapfrog contested at about 145 miles an hour, as we saw between the two teammates. That was Odo losing out on that spot to his teammate of Lucas Vieira. Vieira has not had a good start to this season in the number 16 car. Looking to maybe bounce back here at Montreal, or maybe even do it as hometown race at Interlagos in about a month's time.
Absolutely. That'll be the next time we're going racing here, 3 weeks away again. And we'll be back for Interlagos. Should be a great race and a great round of this championship. Looked to me like Vieira was rather given that place by Ryan Odo, but they all count. This is Young in traffic now. Alfredo Charles Souza and Adrian Fernandez in amongst all this at the moment, as Alberto Diaz just makes a few passes on a few of these contenders who have dropped well away from the lead lap right now. I think, is it Luis Miguel Perez also involved? I'm not entirely sure, but Aiden Young has got, oh dear, there's all sorts of weaving going on in front of him there, and that is Souza staying out the way for Fernandez and for the two leaders. Fernandez goes a bit wide. Young is going to lose a lot of time as a result of this, and these leading lap drivers are going to be very unimpressed with some of the lap driving, I feel. They're just running their own race after all, and there's nothing to say you have to jump out the way Formula 1 style, but even so, the leaders are going to be pretty frustrated through all this traffic, and they're a perfect example of it, still stuck in behind.
And I have it a guess that John Bodefer is flashing his headlights in pure unbridled disgust. Fernandez stabbing on the brakes. He's going to get out of harm's way in all of this. Bodefer not going to be happy at all with how he was raced by his competitor, heading down into the hairpin. Fernandez not very happy with how things have gone for him here at Montreal. Got a piece of some drama that was really not of any of his own, heading out of the chicane. Ever since then, he's been on the back foot massively in the 127 car. The driver who did pretty all right last season here in the Radical America Championship has struggled up to this point, has struggled to find his footing. Doesn't look like he'll have that here at Montreal, as he finds stuff in P14 one lap down, as Colby Buck has actually made a run through pit lane. And speaking of running through pit lane here, I think we are probably only 2 or 3 laps away from seeing these drivers pit.
Yeah, I think so. I think of the leaders will know when the pit stops have really kicked off, when John Bodefer comes in, and that will really kick things off for everybody else as well. Alberto Diaz just lost quite a lot of time in that bit of traffic there, as he was putting Luis Perez a lap down there, and Perez seemed to have damage, so I wonder whether those two incidents are related, and now that gap has come down to 1.7, whether it's any coincidence or not. But there is the hairpin. Aiden Young putting himself back into potential race leading situation here. As I mentioned, 2.4 seconds more fuel he took on first time round, as Robert Neville continues to hold off John Benelid.
And looking at these two battling just barely outside of the top 10, Neville and Benelid, this is a battle for P11, and Jared Gregory just barely, you can barely see that speck of a race car in the 218 running his way a little bit farther in front of these competitors. If these two decide to work together as pseudo teammates, which they certainly are, in a side-by-side down the backstretch off into turn number 8 and 9, that will be just an exploratory look from Benelid on Neville. But Jared, oh, contact, huge one, heading off through turn number 9. Neville had a sideways step, and Benelid touches his front left.
That is a big shame for Benelid, because he had nothing to do with that really, but Robert Neville just made a mistake in front of him, and there would have been no time to react there at all. that is going to see them both with damage, and they might as well make their last pit stop just a tad early. Have a look at it again. It's just these curves, and you mentioned it earlier on. This version, this scan of the iRacing Circuit Montreal is Circuit Gilles-Villeneuve, I should say, the Montreal circuit. It is so much more unforgiving because of those curves at turn 8 and 9, especially. If you just sense that going a little bit wrong in real life these days, you just go over the tarmac. But that's exactly why there shouldn't be so much tarmac runoff on the exit of chicanes like that, because you feel the need to try and stay on the road, which of course should always be the case. And unfortunately, it's turned out bad for Neville, but that just shows, you know, mistakes are punished on this scan of the circuit, and maybe not necessarily in a way that they would be in real life as well.
You know, off the point that you raised a couple of moments ago there, Ewan, these cars, despite very, very far removed from other counterparts, as much as a lawnmower would be better on the grass, both a Radical SR10 and a lawnmower treat the curbs with the same amount of frustration.
Yeah, they are not suitable for bouncing around, like you see on some of these curbs at Montreal, like you see for some of the cars in iRacing. This is Sanders on the back of Dunkovic, the leader in the AM class, and Sanders will be very pleased that Dunkovic let him have that position, because Sanders could very much have got caught up. He did graze the wall of champions though.
Yeah, small little tap, small little nudge of the wall. He hit the tire barrier, and if he hit that at a bit more sad of an angle, that probably would have fired him straight nose first into that outside concrete wall as another sideways snap coming out of turn number 2. Graham Sanders' car is driving around horribly like a declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo. He drops down to 8th.
Yeah, is that damage going to see him in pit lane, or is it just something he needs to get used to here before he carries on again? But he's let Dunkovic back through again here. He seems to be driving fine, but he does now anyway. Oh,
Graham Sanders has picked up a black flag according to iRacing, so I think those incident points may have come back to strike him. 15x is a limit where you pick up a drive-through, and I think Graham Sanders may have just hit that.
40 minutes in, that is unbelievable. Black flag for Sanders. Somebody else has got a meatball as well. Or is that Sanders as well, maybe? Has Sanders got a black flag and a meatball? We will find out.
Black meatball doesn't sound very appetizing.
No. No. Black flag and a meatball at same time. Preferably one rather than the other. But there we go. Anyway, we will try and get to the bottom of who's got a meatball, and not in a good fashion here this afternoon. Lucas Vieira still holds on to 4th place ahead of Ryan Odo, who is now in 5th, and it looks like these two are going to just be with one another right to the very end in these positions, Tim Rose. They are going to be in the top 5 now that Sanders is out of the picture, but it just depends what order.
And I wonder if we will potentially have a swapperoo between these two. Lucas Vieira entering the season as a reigning champion, but he has not had a good start at all. Ryan Odo looking to find some firm footing. I'm sure at this point in the season, only 4 races into this 10-round championship. I'm not sure if we will see a swapperoo, but hey, I've seen some odd things. If we end up hearing a Ryan is faster than you message be played into the ear of Lucas Vieira, then we'll know for certain. But before then, it's going to be these two running as they are at the present moment. So have to worry about those pit stops as well. Diaz, Young, and Bodafer all running nose to tail, and I don't have a good feeling about this for Ubaldo Diaz. He was probably hoping for a gap above 2.5 seconds when this pit cycle starts here in a couple of laps time. He doesn't have that presently unless he can pull out something massive over these next few laps before he makes that trip into pit lane. I think Diaz may run the risk of dropping back down.
Well, it's less of a Ryan is faster than you and more of a mistake from Vieira. Oh, and they very nearly make contact. And Odo, as he pulled alongside, almost as if he was giving his mate a message on the straight, then he took back into line again before turn 1. Don't know what that was all about between these two, but they make their way out the other side and they continue to fight. They took on pretty much the same fuel at the pit stop, so this is a legitimate fight here. Although I can't quite read it for the moment. Can't read at all what Ryan Odo was doing on the straight there.
I am not sure either. That or he was just trying to entertain himself and his teammate, potentially. I'm not too sure. I've called some races where some teammates were like, you know what, let's give the guys on a broadcast something to talk about, and they just decide to go side by side, heading off through every single corner because they have enough of a gap between themselves and the next car. These two teammates running effectively in no man's land at the present moment. Unless there's some sort of miracle that comes their way, probably not going to see them move farther up the running order. Graham Sanders has come into the pits, so don't believe it was a meatball flag for him. It may have just been that black flag. He's heading through the pits at the moment. Jose Gonzalez has come in. He was here at 1 point and leader. Found himself down in P11 at the moment as Ubaldo Diaz has come into the pits.
And John Butterfield has as well. I thought Diaz would be able to go one lap further, but maybe that was a strategic decision to come into pit lane because they're not too far away from some of the other lapped drivers there in the AM class, especially those who are thinking about stopping as well here. So it's maybe a decision from Diaz to pit in, and he will now take that little bit of fuel that he needs, a couple of seconds shorter than Butterfield, you'd imagine. Still a decent amount required, to be fair. There you go, 12 seconds. Butterfield should be 14 in terms of seconds, although he has been fuel saving, so it's only a half second longer. John Butterfield could be right in the game here, but it's going to be a race between Diaz and Young out of the pit lane next time round. We'll see if they're anywhere close, if Aiden Young's going to come out a few seconds in the lead, like he did at Road Atlanta.
Only time will tell with 16 minutes left on the clock. Aiden Young in the realistic opportunity to get back-to-back wins this season, become the first pro driver here from the 2025 Radical Americas Championship to grab a second win. If anyone's going to do it, it's probably going to be Aiden Young. I have some experience covering this driver, as do you, and he is a formidable force. That driver of the 427 car, no matter what it may be in, it could be in a GT4, could be in a GT3, could be an SR10, could really be whatever. He always brings the pace and brings the thunder to compete week after week, race after race, and championship after championship. He's holding on to the race lead for now. Still has to worry about that run through the pits, but it's looking good if you're Aiden Young.
Yeah, he certainly said it. Oh, dear me, before they both missed the braking zone, but of course they're coming into the pit lane. That's Lucas Vieira and Ryan Odo in next. I think Young will be in next lap, but he might leave it another lap longer than that even, as Odo and Vieira run down the pit lane, absolutely nose to tail. Vieira pulls to the left first of all. Odo next up as well. They're both trying to sight their pit box, which is pretty difficult when you're running so close to one another, and your pit boxes are next door to one another as well. But the seconds will now tick away, the fuel will tick away. John Butterfield is going to get easily past those guys. Odo and Vieira are fighting for fourth position, and it is going to be Ryan Odo who gets out first in front of his teammate.
And still covered by just about nothing are these two Team ECR cars, and I have a feeling they will continue to battle all the way through to the checkered flag. There's a good spot for Odo, but Vieira, it's tough to figure out which one of these drivers wants the spot more. I mean, they were the ones battling for the championship in the pro category last season, so they have dreams of going for another, in the case of Vieira, or going for his first if you are Ryan Odo. But at the same time, they have not had very ideal starts to the season. Vieira yet to grab a win, albeit last season he proved that consistency can be key. Nonetheless, both of these drivers looking for a good result here at Montreal. Who's going to finish in front of the other is a real question I've got in my head.
Exactly. And how is it going to be decided as well? Will it be decided by team orders, or will they fight for it out on the circuit? Aiden Young carries on again here. So I said he had one of the longest pit stops in that first part of the race. Well, he's carrying on again here as he puts Joel Jacklin a second lap down, I believe that was, out through turn 2. Anyway, Young has decided that dealing with the lap traffic is nowhere near as bad as pitting early and having to deal with potential passes for position. Well, it doesn't really matter right now. I think everybody's in pretty heavy lap traffic. Here's John Butterfield right in behind Diego Zuccarelli. That is actually for a position though, so there's the point immediately. I mean, Butterfield is going to find this a lot more difficult than Young found that car putting a lap down.
And as we get to the end of this race, I want to give another shout out to your current AM leader, on track for a rather convincing win in the AM class and his first in this series. Jared Dunkovich in the number 9 car leads it at the moment. Jared Gregory has come into the pits from P2 of those AM competitors, so that will be a massive gap for Dunkovich to enjoy. when it comes to a big gap at the end of a race like this, it's like having a spare parachute whenever you go skydiving. It's nice to have it for a little bit of security, but in an ideal world, you wouldn't have to use it. Already saw the 21 of Jose Gonzalez have to get dropped out of that battle, so I'm sure that we don't want to have a repeat of that. I'm sure John Benlin would love to have a repeat of that, as he would be in the catbird seat to capitalize on a moment for Dunkovich, but still looking good for the driver, the number 9.
It certainly is. We will continue to keep an eye on that, as well as the pro battle for the race win, which is surely going to happen pretty soon. Oh, Butterfield looks down the inside of Zuccarelli. So and he goes wide. Oh, the bumper hit him. He has to lock it up just to save himself there. And very nearly got rear-ended by the lap car in behind him as well. John Butterfield gets away with it. And as long as he doesn't spin here, he will be on the podium at the end of the day. But that was contact through the final corner.
Oh, as you can see, a lap down car, very slow, heading their way off through turn number 1. And also, while I'm talking about lap cars, Graham Sanders is still in the pit, so just decided to call it a day here at Montreal. But that could have ended so much worse for Boda. For granted, his front tires have been turned into rectangles, trying to keep that thing going in a straight line. But hey, he didn't crash, he didn't hit a tire barrier. Instead, he just had a massive code brand moment coming out of the final corner.
Yeah, absolutely. He will get away with it, but not by much. And well, let's see if Aiden Young has got away with this very long stint to the very end of his fuel tank. He must be super low on fuel now. He can't go any further, and he comes into the pit lane. 25 seconds is gap to Diaz. Will that be enough?
Only time will tell, really. Only time will tell. There's Diaz. You can see him in the bottom shot. He's heading his way down that back straightaway off into the chicane here in a couple of moments' time. Young having to wait all the way through to get to his pit stall right at the very end. Now, flashing our minds back to the race at the Nordschleife, was a big curve back from Diaz. That's not going to help out his cause one bit, but it was the race at the Nordschleife where Aiden Young really lost his opportunity to do well there because of a botched pit stop. Not going to have a case of that here at Montreal. He exits out with a 2.3 second lead between himself and Diaz. I think that curve back for Diaz, it didn't really hurt him too badly, but it didn't help him at all. He nearly flew that car like a kite into the wall.
Yeah, it may have happened like this anyway. Young was 3.2 seconds quicker in the pit box anyway, and he will have been a bit quicker on the in-laps as well with that slightly lower fuel load compared to Diaz, who was on higher fuel for a little bit of time there. In fact, J.R. Gregory in the meantime is just on the back of John Benlid here, who might be struggling with a little bit of front-end damage after the contact made earlier on. This is the last spot inside the top 3 they're fighting for here, and J.R. Gregory, of course, gave this up not so long ago. They're also the last 2 on the lead lap, if you can believe it. Only 10 on the lead lap because of the pace from Boda, Diaz and Aiden Young at the front of the race.
Oh, as you can see, a big lockup heading down into the chicane. That's John Benlid having to use that runoff area, and through goes J.R. Gregory to jump his way into the final podium spots of those AM competitors. Now, to anyone who hasn't tuned into this series before, it should be noted that the Pro and AM drivers are scored based off their overall finishing position, not based off of their class spots. So that P9 result for J.R. Gregory would mean the exact same for an AM competitor, but it would mean the exact same for a Pro competitor than would for an AM competitor, I should say. My apologies. But J.R. Gregory getting that move done after Benlid had a mistake down into that chicane, proving yet again that the brakes are always the toughest part of managing these SR10s.
Yeah. Well, J.R. Gregory has benefited from a bit of a slip up from John Benlid, and it looks like he might well be able to hold that all the way to the finish as well. But there's a number of these battles that might hold to the finish. We just don't know for the moment. That is the closest of them out there on the circuit. Ryan Oda's only a second behind John Butterfield at the moment, and Lucas Vieira only a further second behind him. Roberto Diaz 1.4 seconds behind as the outlap is completed by Aiden Young. Just over 8 minutes to go, and there is still some battles to settle. Butterfield has indeed made a mistake here, and Ryan Oda straight through. Not sure where that will have happened. Indeed, the mistake I'm talking about, of course, the pass itself on the straight before turn 8, but how's John Butterfield allowed that to happen?
Yeah, it had to have been some sort of major curve whack. It must have happened heading off. Yeah, there you can see heading onto the back straightaway with the sideways snap. He held on to it, but losing out on a boatload of time and losing out in the final podium spot and all of that as well. He's still within striking distance, though. You can see the two cars of Odo and Bodafer covered by just about nothing. 0.6 of a second as they head their way down the back straightaway for one of the last times in this race. 7.5 minutes on the clock. That's plenty of time for Bodafer to try and get his bearings straight after that moment and get his way back up into the podium.
Well, the question is whether he's actually quick enough to get back past Odo. I think Ryan Odo has been stuck in traffic a little bit this afternoon, and that has hampered his race just a little bit more than it otherwise might have done. But I could be wrong. We are about to find out, I suppose, now that John Butterfield is right behind and for the lead as well. 1 second only for Aiden Young now at the front ahead of Alberto Diaz. Last time around, Diaz was 0.3 of a second quicker, 3.5 tenths. If he can do that again once or twice, he will set up a grandstand finish for us here in this one.
Yeah, and we are certainly raising out of our seats. We're getting to the point where it's getting to crunch time for these competitors, and considering how short this season is as well, may not seem like a lot, but if you can get just a couple of points on your competitors in one of these races, it can make a huge difference come time for the season finale in the fall of this year. As we take a look at this battle, maybe I'll flare up once again between J.R. Gregory and John Bedlid. You can see those two cars nose to tail heading their way through the chicane. Bedlid had that moment, locked it up, and lost out on that podium in the AM class. He's now fighting back down the inside off into turn number 1. Gregory gonna have to concede on that outside line, and through goes the driver of the number 8 car, but still not over yet. He runs a little bit wide on exit of turn number 2. Gregory maybe gonna have a run as they head through this small little flat apples down into turn number 3. As John Bodefer's had some extracurricular drama, he's now lost out on 4th to Vieira.
Yeah, he has. That might have been at the very same... no, it's probably they're a bit further around the circuit, actually, not at the same point out on the circuit, because these guys are only just working their way through there now, Benlid and Gregory, but it might have been at the final chicane. It might have been a legitimate pass by Lucas Vieira to get past John Butterfield. Not all the passes made here tonight have been as a result of mistakes, although there have been quite a lot of those. It has been possible, at least, to get yourself down the inside and get yourself through normally, but John Butterfield just doesn't look like he's got the speed right now. Odo and Vieira only getting quicker as this race goes on. Unfortunately, it's one to forget for Geodesic.
Yeah, not going to be an ideal race for that team, and I don't think it'll be enough for Bodafer. Not enough time to be able to reel back in these drivers unless they come to blows, which, hey, that's how the championship really got decided at the end of last season. It was a crash between Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira in the season finale at the Nordschleife that set us up for a heart-pumping finish to 2024. But if it happened here in 2025, it would be extra awkward considering these two are now teammates. So Bodafer may be in for the drama. Maybe he'd want to be a fly on the wall, that or just wants a podium. I would lean towards that last one being the one that he has in mind.
Absolutely. Well, who is going to finish on the podium? Who's going to finish on the top step? Because Aiden Young has been caught now for the lead by Alberto Diaz, and there could well be another few laps to go just yet. At least 3 laps left, maybe 4. We will wait and see how many are required, but Aiden Young is going to have to put his defensive shapes on here in the final few laps of the race, however many laps that's going to be, because Alberto Diaz is quicker than him right now, and he's caught up to the race leader.
And this is going to be a fight for the ages between these two. Aiden Young and Ubaldo Diaz, they did battle last time out in this series at Road Atlanta. Didn't really work out too well for Diaz. It worked out tremendously well for Aiden Young, and I wonder if that's riding in the mind of the 108 driver. If you had a battle with the driver that you're running right behind a matter of a couple of weeks ago, and he lost out on an opportunity to get back-to-back wins because of an incident, would you want to give concessions to the drivers in front of you when you try and go for a move? Maybe there's a very good reason why I'm behind the microphone instead of behind the wheel, but if I were Ubaldo Diaz, I would try and force this issue quite hard on Young.
Yeah, let's see if he does. in towards that final chicane first time round. Does he try and strike immediately? I think it is probably the best way to do it. Here he is. Oh, looks, but no, can't do it. It's harder in theory than it is to say it out loud. Out to the final turn. That's not a great run for Young, though. And Diaz is going to be close. 3 minutes to go. And that might well be the penultimate lap of the race that they're just beginning right now. Diaz has a look down the inside again, but no way through this time around. Certainly if they start fighting, they're going to lose enough time to make this the penultimate lap of the race. Not long for Diaz to find his way past.
Yeah, and decent amount of overtaking opportunities for him as well. But if he wants to get it done, he needs to get it done with authority, to try and pounce and try and be confident when you try and go for that move. The braking zones are always some of the toughest parts of doing well in these Radical SR10 cars. Doesn't matter the race length. If you can get that braking nailed down right, you're going to be smelling like a bed of roses. If Diaz misses his braking marker a little bit when he goes for that move, Aiden Young's going to say, hey, thank you very much, I'll take that. But we've got some more drama. That's a lap car a little bit farther in front. Not entirely sure who that is running in front of these racers, but that may play a big factor in this battle as well.
See, it's Castillo who is going to go 3 laps down here in the 12 car, and that will be the last car to go a lap down. Unless J.R. Gregory and John Bedlard's fight gets extremely out of hand, but it shouldn't do, and they shouldn't lose 10 seconds on the last lap. But lap traffic will now just play a bit of a role. Young defends, Diaz closes. Look at this in towards the chicane, can't quite get there, and he surely can't leave it this late onto the last lap either. Was that too much of a jump over the curves there? Has he let this go? Not quite. He's just not quite got the run that he needed. Over the line, 1.5 minutes to go. Not sure this is the last lap just yet. Didn't see the white flag, but it may well be the last lap. It is certainly getting towards those last chances now for Alberto Diaz.
Yeah, I don't believe they grabbed the white there, which I'm a little bit surprised about with lap times for these racers ticking just a bit over 1 minute 30. That may wreak havoc to the rest of the drivers in this field. They keep it close.
Diaz has got a black flag. He's hit the instant limit. I thought he might have gotten off track late on there, but Alberto Diaz has got a black flag, and that is the end of the fight for the race win here. Aiden Young can breathe a sigh of relief, although he probably doesn't know it yet.
Yeah, I think he can breathe a little bit easy. He's probably still got to be going into the end of this race with a lot of pressure. If he gets pressured into a mistake, he's not going to be feeling good at all. This may be music to the ears, though, for the likes of Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira. If Ubaldo Diaz doesn't serve that penalty, I believe it will be a 40-second time penalty that gets added to him at the end of that race. That right there was Luis Miguel Pires with a moment, heading out of the final, heading out of the hairpin, allowing these drivers to catch up in suit. About 15 seconds left to go on the clock. Diaz is going to fight this still. It's not a battle for the win. He needs to come in and serve that black flag. Don't believe he will, though. He wants to battle tooth and nail right to the end.
And they go side by side, and it is going to be the checkered flag. At the end of the race, they're going to be absolutely side by side here in a photo finish. 13 thousandths of a second will be the gap on the road for Aiden Young, who wins 2 in a row here in the Radical SimRacing Americas Championship. What a bizarre finish, as Alberto Diaz should drop through the field. Ryan Odo and Lucas Vieira fought it out for the final spot on the podium as well. Odo gets that by only 0.5 of a second, but in the AM class, it's going to be Jared Dunkovic who gets the victory over 15 seconds, or around 15 seconds in the end, and he's really making a splash since joining this championship. Only at Road Atlanta throughout the last round. He's going to be rocketing up those standings past Castillo, who was here today, past Coe, who wasn't, Sousa, Perez, all of these drivers. He'll be into the top 10 in the driver's standings by the end of this, as Jared Dunkovic comes over the line and takes victory, 7th place overall, but the AM victory this afternoon.
And that'll be his first win of this season. Is it the first of only one? Is it the first of many? Let's just wait and see. Here's that finish, though. Diaz, I'm not sure if he was aware that he had a black flag or not, but he still forced that issue on Young. Maybe just to be a thorn in the side. Maybe he didn't know he had a black flag. Regardless, if that section, if that final chicane was a little bit more wide and Diaz didn't have that awkward bump along the curb, that may have been his for the taking. That was a super close finish at the end. end of it all, waiting for a few more cars to cross the line, literally just one in the form of J.R. Gregory. The iRacing will not apply the penalty to the car of Diaz unless all the cars cross the line, which they have now, so Diaz gets demoted down to 5th, so it is the win for Young, and what a race at the end of it all here, you, and oh my god.
Absolutely. So well spotted. Young does take the win by 14 seconds in the end, but what a bizarre finish in some ways. Ryan Odo beats Lucas Vieira to the line for what will be second in the end, ahead of John Butterfield, who finishes 4th, ahead of Alberto Diaz, the championship leader, who drops down to 4th, and he will lose 5th rather. He will lose his championship lead as well. Diego Zuccarelli finishes in 6th, ahead of the AM winner Jared Dunkovic. Jose Gonzalez and John Bentley join them on the podium ahead of J.R. Gregory, who rounds out the top 10. Robert Neville was 1 lap down alongside Corby Wook, David Unger and Charles Kresic. Joel Jacklin was 2 laps down. We saw Alfredo Torres Souza and Gregory Castillo just go 3 laps down before the end. Luis Miguel Perez was 4 laps down, ahead of Graham Sanders and Adrian Fernandez, who round out the field, and indeed there were those who retired from the race. Let's have a chat now to Aidan Young, the race winner for the 2nd round in a row. Congratulations, Aidan, on a fantastic win once again here tonight. Tell us about that last lap there. Did you know about Diaz's black flag, and how did you approach it?
Yeah, I saw it on my relative on caps, and then I got word from my spotter as well that, hey, Diaz has been black flagged. That's your automatic win, Aiden. Just bring it home. And I was like, cool. So I mean, if he wanted to put up a fight, I'd give him a little fight, but if he's gonna make it aggressive, I was just gonna give him room because I knew he had the black flag, and I don't want to crash myself when I have a big gap back to P2 and then lose out on a semi free win there. So, but yeah, I mean that was fun though. That was great.
Yeah, a great late battle there. And how does it feel to be a double race winner, consecutive rounds as well? It must feel fantastic to finally have got that win in round 3, and now they've 2 have come along at once.
Yeah, no, I mean, I figured once I learned the car, I would be towards the front, and here we are. But I mean, to know that it's 2 wins in a row, it feels even better.
Absolutely. Congratulations on 2 in a row, and we'll see if you can make it 3 in a row at Interlagos in 3 weeks' time. Thanks very much for chatting to us, and congratulations on the win.
Thank you. See you boys in 3 weeks.
Thanks very much. That is Aidan Young, who wins the race overall in the AM class. Ron is standing by with Jared Dunkovic.
And Jared Dunkovic joining us in the commentary booth. Jared, congratulations on your win, your first win here in the Radical Americas Championship. How do you talk us through this race at Montreal?
Oh man, that was a lot of fun. You know, it was definitely dancing on the ragged edge the entire time, especially during that last stint. But you know, it just put our head down, especially wanted to come back hard after the penalty from last race, and wanted to come back harder and stronger, and definitely did. It feels so good.
Yeah, I can imagine that feels very good. Grabbing your first win in this championship. You only joined for the last round of Road Atlanta, if my memory serves me correctly. So late entry to this series, but you've been pretty quick up to this point. So what are your thoughts heading throughout the rest of the season?
Oh yeah, no, it's only for the 2nd race in. We're gonna keep going hard, going fast, going quick, going forward, and I'm looking forward to the challenge too with Jose. He put up a great fight, and he's been putting up a great fight. Hats off to him. Stinks about him. I think he had a little incident with the curb at the World Champions, but definitely gonna be some good racing going forward. Needless to say, these guys know how to race, and they race you hard and race you clean, and that's definitely something I respect about them too.
Yeah, and it was a clean, hard battle between yourself and Jose Gonzalez. Really looking forward to seeing you two drivers battle tooth and nail all throughout the rest of the season, and looking forward to seeing who may come out on top at the end of it all as well. But Jared, thank you for joining us here in the commentary booth, and congratulations on the win here at Montreal.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, guys. Yeah, just a quick couple shout outs real quick, if you don't mind. I'd like to give a shout out to Nick, Benji, my girlfriend Jenna, and then I'd also like to give a shout out to her brother, because he designed the paint, and it's a frickin' ripping paint. And just everyone that helps me out, and really appreciate the backing and the support. Looking forward to the next race.
You know, someone who used to run Hoosier tires back in my karting days, I've always been a fan of purple, so I can say that I'm a fan of your paint scheme as well. But Jarrett, well done on the win here at Montreal, and excited to see you back out on the track for the rest of the season.
Wonderful. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
And that is Jarrett Dunkovic, the AM winner here tonight. Let's go back to Pro now, where second place Ryan Odo has now joined us. Ryan, welcome in and congratulations on second place. Just finishing ahead of Lucas there, but it was a good battle to the line. Tell us a little bit about those final few laps.
Yeah, it was very close. We were mainly working together, and I'm pretty sure something happened to John Bodefer. I'm not sure, but I know for a fact that Diego Zuccarelli and him had a good battle, and that brought him closer, and then I think he had damage or something, and that brought Lucas and I even closer. And then Lucas and I just raced to the line and got second and third because Ubaldo got a black flag.
Absolutely, and that black flag also promotes you to second place in the championship. Now, how would you assess how this season has gone so far in obviously the race win, the great start at the North Side, but everything since as well, of course?
It could have gone better. I feel like every single race I made a mistake. Like this race, I made a terrible mistake of going in way too hot when I was battling Graham Sanders and completely cutting off the road. I am very, very disappointed in myself for doing that. I'm very mad at myself for doing that as well, because not only did I hurt my race, but I completely ruined his race and just completely messed him up. I'm so sorry to Graham, but other than that, I think if I stop making these small mistakes, I could probably challenge Aiden for the lead of the championship.
Yeah, well, we look forward to seeing it in the next few weeks. I'm sure it's going to be a great fight. Congratulations on second tonight, Ryan, and thanks for chatting to us as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks very much. That is Ryan Odo finishing second at Montreal tonight. Well, that's just about going to do it for us here from the Radical Sim Racing Americas Championship here from the circuit Gilles-Villeneuve. We'll be back in 3 weeks' time from Interlagos from 8:30 Eastern Time. As always, it will be the halfway point in the championship after we get to that stage. By the way, between now and then, though, the European Championship will be back from Bathurst 7 days before that. Make sure you join us for that. And indeed, the Radical E-Cup broadcasts that go on every Friday night here on RaceSpotTV, the 2100 GMT slots. Big thanks, of course, to everyone who's been tuned in tonight. I've been Ian O'Leary alongside Ron Mounds and Hugo Louise behind the cameras. We'll see you in 3 weeks' time next at Interlagos. Goodbye for now.